We'd like to start the press conference by Minister Kamikawa. Minister, the floor is yours. Thank you. I would like to talk about one matter. I plan to attend the G7 Trade Ministers meeting, which will be held in Osaka from tomorrow, October 28th through the 29th, where Japan will be hosting the meeting as the G7 president. And I will be co-chairing the session with Mr. Nishimura, who is the Minister of Economy, Trade, and Industry. Right now, the international community is at a historical turning point. There are many issues that require international efforts to solve, such as the situation in Israel and Palestine, whose tensions are rising, as well as aggression of Russia into Ukraine, as well as the pandemic and the climate change. Those of us in the G7 who share universal values such as freedom, democracy, and the respect of basic human rights and the rule of law have a responsible role to lead the international community toward sustainable growth of the global economy. Bearing this in mind, at the upcoming meeting with the WTO ministerial meeting, the 13th WTO ministerial meeting, or MC13 of the WTO in mind, we intend to discuss preserving and strengthening multilateral trading system based on free and fair rules centered on the WTO, and also discuss supply chain related risk as well as economic coercion from the perspective of economic security. Furthermore, at the G7 Hiroshima Summit, we confirmed the need to strengthen collaboration with partners beyond the realm of G7. So we will plan to have sessions to discuss members of the Global South members, and also we have outreach and international outreach countries. International organization will take place. Also, during this opportunity, we hope to hold various individual meetings and exchange views with participating ministers as well as the representatives of the international organizations. That is all from me. Thank you.
If you have a question, please raise your... If your name is called, state your name and affiliation proceeding to the microphone. Nemoto-san from Nikkei, please. I'm Nemoto from Nikkei. I have the question on Israeli situation. Concerning the conflict between Israel and Hamas, the immediate ceasefire is asserted now by the Russian and Arabian countries, and the EU and the United States temporary suspension and humanitarian halt is seeked. This difference comes from the different understanding on the right to self-defense of Israel. So what is your take on respective views? As has been mentioned, we have been maintaining a consistent the position to unequivocally condemns the recent terror attack by Hamas and other Palestinian militants. And also the seeking for the immediate release of the hostages, and as well as the securing the safety of the citizens, and all the people concerned. That it should be compliant with the international law, and early calm down of the situation have been requested. But there has been the increasing the seriousness of the situation of the people in Gaza. So we have to first secure the environment to be able to extend the humanitarian assistance activities. Referring to the situation as practical measures against the current situation, the humanitarian purpose, a temporary halt of combat, meaning the humanitarian pause is important. Therefore, against Israel, we have been facilitating on this matter. Moving forward, based on the changing situation, time to time, we will work on to continue making our diplomatic effort for the improvement of the humanitarian situation as well as coming down the situation.
From Reuters, Murakami-san, please.
Japan has called for a pause to the fighting in Gaza to allow access for humanitarian purposes. You mentioned now that in Japanese, 人道目的の一時的な戦闘休止 is the same as humanitarian pause. But would this, what is your understanding on whether this amounts to a ceasefire or not? What does Japan specifically mean by a pause, and how long would this pause last, and what would the scope be? Thank you.
Thank you. With regard to the expression of humanitarian pause, in order to improve the human rights situation in the Gaza Strip, it is important that we see a pause, if you will, in the fighting for the purpose of ensuring a climate which enables humanitarian assistance. I would not like to, but right now, toward the ensuring of the right environment to provide humanitarian assistance, I understand the various efforts are being made by the various parties. Japan will continue to collaborate with various parties in the international community and encourage the resolve. Thank you.
Japan Orient News, Azahari-san, please.
Thank you. Hagdo Ansari, Japan Orient News. The G7 reportedly said that Israel has the right of self-defense according to the international law. So what does that mean according to the international law exactly? In the course of this Israel's right of self-defense, thousands of Palestinian children and families were wiped out from Earth, basically, and exterminated according to what has been shown on the internet and other media. Does Japan support this form of right of self-defense? And if not, do you condemn it? Thank you.
まず G7 の主張についてということで、私に具体的に何を意味するかという。
So I think, and I have received another question against the assertion by Israel. And what is the reaction from the government of Japan? I would like to refrain from making concrete comment. Based on that, as a sovereign state, Israel has a natural right to protect the country and its own people. But generally speaking, those rights should be exercised based on the international law. That is needless to say, and this has been repeatedly stated. And on the second point, as pointed out, Gaza Strip and the neighboring area, many casualties have been victimized. And the local situation has been getting more and more serious. As Japan, we have been watching the situation with a deep concern. As has been mentioned, Japan unequivocally condemns the recent terror attacks by Hamas and other Palestinian militants. The securing the civilians and the security of the civilians are ensured, and early calm down of the situation are requested constantly. To Israel, the importance of the protecting the civilians and the securing the environment, enabling to extend the humanitarian assistance activities have been conveyed to Israel. So we are not directly the party involved, so we don't have the full understanding of the detailed situations. So we would like to make refrain from making definitive legal assessment. On top of that, as a sovereign state, Israel has the right to protect its own nation as well as its own people, but generally speaking, such rights should be exercised based on the international law. That is needless to say. At any rate, as Japan, we will continue monitoring the situation on ground, and we will communicate with the countries concerned and do our best to secure the safety of the Japanese nationals and making the diplomatic effort to improve the situation and calm down the situation.
Next question, Kyoto. Katsurada, Kyoto is my name. I'm going to ask about the Middle East situation. From the 11th, from the November 2nd, I understand that Israel and Palestinian situation will be the main topic. With regard to the Middle East, there are differences among the G7 with regard to the position toward the Middle East. How do you intend to lead the discussion against this backdrop? Thank you. With regard to the question you raised, now Japan is the chair and the president of G7. It is important that as the G7 chair, Japan has led the discussion toward maintaining and strengthening international order, which is based on rule of law and which is free and open, as well as, and also we have also set aside priority of strengthening involvement of international partnership. Now, as far as the Israel-Palestinian situation is concerned, we held G7 four ministers telephone conference on October 17th, as the situation has become even tense. Also, among the G7 four ministers, we agreed that we condemn the terror attack, and also with regard to the need, we also agreed among the G7 that we need to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza Strip. And with regard to the G7 four ministers meeting from November 7th up until the 8th, we hope that we'll be able to have very deep discussions between the G7 four ministers with regard to the situation in Israel and Palestine, and also in the light of the situation which has evolved since the G7 four minister meeting, which was held on the side of the UN Security Council or UN Assembly back in September. We have also discussed about the situation in Ukraine as well as in the Pacific. We believe that as the G7 presidency is concerned, we only have 2 months. We have more than 2 months, and so therefore it's important that we play the role. We continue to fulfill the role as the G7 president until the end of our tenure. And having said that, it is important that we transfer and pass on the baton to the next G7 president, which is Italy. Thank you. Next question.
Igarashi from NHK, please. This is Igarashi from NHK. I have a question on China. So on the CGNTN reported that the former premier of China, Li Keqiang, passed away. So what is your take? And early today, Li Keqiang, the former president of China, passed away. He visited Japan as premier of China in 7 years' time. And he has made the enormous contribution for the Japan-China relations. I would like to express the sincere condolences to him and pay that he may rest in peace. Next question, please.
はい、では、ジャパンタイムズ2番。
Yes, Japan Times, please. Thank you, Japan Times. I would like to ask about the military cooperation between Japan and the Philippines. I understand that the Japan and the Philippine government has actually agreed toward begin negotiations toward the signing of reciprocal access agreement between Japan and the Philippines. Can you talk about this report? Is this a fact? And also, to the extent possible, what type of agreement would you like? Are you envisioning if that should be the case? And also, if I may, understand the Philippines has set the OSA in spring, and this is now what is going to be rendered in the context of OSA, which was set up in spring this year. Thank you. Let me respond to your first question with regard to the report about Japan-Philippines RAA. We are aware that there are such media reports. Now, in terms of our relations with Philippines, in the Japan-Philippines joint statement in February this year, we've agreed to continue to consider ways to further evolve defense cooperation through training of military officials as well as defense officials, and also through frameworks to facilitate and strengthen training as well as mutual visits. Now, beyond this point, because this will be a diplomatic exchange, I will not be able to offer concrete response. In any event, we believe that with the Philippines, we will be able to continue to deepen coordination and collaboration based on toward maintenance and strengthening of international order, which is open and which is also based on rule of law. Also, with regard to the question of OSA, the Philippines is situated in a very important hub of the sea lane, and Philippines is a very important partner, important presence in terms of the regional security and also in terms of the partnership with Japan from the security standpoint. So Philippines is one of the potential candidates for the first year in terms of OSA. With regard to the concrete items to be submitted, we are now making final coordination with the Philippines. Thank you.
よろしければ会見以上とさせていただきます。ありがとう。
So this is the end of the press conference. Thank you very much.